Hello guys, in this video we will study about the poem The Prayer for My Daughter. As we have talked about first three stanzas of this poem in the previous video, now we will start from the fourth stanza of this poem. So let us start. Helen, being chosen, found life flat and dull, and later had much trouble from a fool, while that great queen that rose out of the spray, being fatherless, could have her way, yet chose a bandy-legged smith for man. It's certain that fine women eat a crazy salad with their meat, whereby the horn of plenty is undone. In these lines, there are three references. There are three references to ancient Greek mythology here. First, Helen was an extraordinarily beautiful woman. The Greek warrior and general Menelaus got married to her because of her great beauty. But her beauty had made her so proud that she found her life with Menelaus dull and boring. Subsequently, she ran away with a lover who was a Trojan prince. Her elopement with this Trojan prince led to a prolonged and bloody war between the Greeks and the Trojans. Thus, Helen's beauty proved a curse to her and to others. The great queen refers to Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love. She is believed to have emerged from sea foam. Having had no father, she knew no discipline and therefore she was merely led by her whims. Because of her undisciplined independence of spirit, she chose a husband who was most unsuited for her. She got married to the lame god Hephaestus. Thus, even Aphrodite's beauty proved a curse to her because she was unhappy and her husband and developed an illicit love affair with another god. The third is the Horn of Plenty or cornucopia is ancient mythology. The horn of a god represented as overflowing with flowers, fruit, and corn. This is connotates plenty, prosperity. The first five lines of this stanza refers to the misfortunes which Helen and Aphrodite caused to themselves and to others. In the next three lines, the poet tells us that there is something wrong with the mentality of beautiful women. He feels sure that lovely women eat some crazy salad with their food, as a result of which they develop some crazy tendency so as to wreck their own lives. Guys, must travel from a fool means the reference is to Paris, the Trojan prince with whom Helen fell in love, thus creating trouble for herself and for others. The rose out of the spray means who emerged from the sea foam or sea waves. The reference is to Aphrodite, a bandy-legged smith for man mean a lamb blacksmith as his husband. The reference is to Hephaestus, who is the god of blacksmiths and thus an expert blacksmith himself, and whom Aphrodite married. The next, whereby the horn of plenty is undone mean which leads to ruin or disaster. The next stanza, the courtesy I would have her chiefly learned. Hearts are not had as a gift, but hearts are earned by those that are not entirely beautiful. Yet many that have played the fool for beauty's very self has charm made voice. And many a poor man that has roved, loved, and thought himself beloved from a glad kindness cannot take his eyes. So, guys, in these lines, the poet would like his daughter to learn courteous manners. Women who are not extraordinarily beautiful will not attract true lovers if they do not possess genuine courtesy and good manners. The hearts of men have to be won by courtesy and affection. Their hearts will not come as gift to women who do not possess exceptional beauty. The poet then becomes autobiographical and makes an oblique reference to his own futile love for the beautiful Morgan. The poet behaved like a fool and fell in love with Morgan because of her beauty. Like a fool, he thought that she too loved him. Subsequently, she became disillusioned and realized that his passion for Morgan was a sheer waste of time. Thus, he became wiser and married another woman, George Headleys, from whom he always received a glad kindness. The next stanza, may she become a flourishing hidden tree, that all her thoughts may like the linnet be, and have no business but dispensing round and magnanimities of sound, nor but in merriment begin a chase, nor but in merriment a quarrel. Oh, may she live like some green laurel, rooted in one dear perpetual place. In these lines, the poet would like his daughter to grow like a flourishing tree hidden from the public gaze. He would like her thoughts to be cheerful like the songs of a bird. She would like her thoughts not to create any fiction or conflict among others but to contribute to large heartedness and generosity in the world. He would like her not to get involved in any competitive struggle except for the sake of fun, and he would not like her to get involved in a quarrel except in jest. He wished her to live like a green laurel tree rooted permanently in one dear spot. Linnet means a kind of songbird. Magnanimities of sound means sound scattering magnanimities of feelings of large heartedness and generosity. In the next stanza, my mind, because the minds that I have loved, the sort of beauty that I have approved, prosper but little, has dried up of late, yet knows that to be choked with hate may will be of all evil chances chief if there is no hatred in a mind. Assault and battery of the wind can never tear the linnet from the leaf. In these lines, the poet wants to say, or the prose from the first five lines, each as follows: my mind has dried up of late because of the minds that I have loved, the sort of beauty that I have approved prosper but little. Yet my mind knows that to be choked with hate may well be chief of all evil chances. The poet says that the sad fate of the person whom he has loved and the disappointing conduct of the beautiful woman, that is Morgan, whom he admired, have caused in him a great depression of spirit, and he is now of the view that the public is not to be relied upon or to be trusted. The poet is here thinking of the hostility of the public towards of the people whom he loved. In spite of that, the poet believes that it is a great misfortune to nourish feelings of hatred towards others. If a man has no hatred in his mind for anyone, no harm can come to him from storm of life. So, guys, now the next stanza. An intellectual hatred is the worst, so let her think opinions are cursed. Have I not seen the loveliest women born out of the mouth of plenty horn, because of her opinionated mind, butter that horn and every good by quiet natures understood and for an old billows full of angry wind. In these lines, the kind of intellectual hatred Morgan had for the English rulers of Ireland is the worst form of hatred. The poet would like his daughter not to have a strong opinion of an intellectual kind, because such opinions led only to suffering and unhappiness. The cities, the example of the loveliest woman, Morgan, who came to a rich aristocratic family but whose strong intellectual opinion made a mere windbag of her. Under the influence of her strong political opinion, Morgan sacrificed her prosperity and her excellent qualities of birth and breeding in order to become an angry agitator and propagandist. The next stanza. Considering that all hatred driven hence, the soul recovers radical innocence and learns at last that is self delighting, self appeasing, self affrighting, and that its own sweet will is heaven's will. She can, though very face should scowl, and every windy quarter howl, or every billow's burst be happy still. In stanza ninth the poet expresses a view that if a woman derives out all hatred from his mind, his soul will recover its original basic innocence. Such a human being will learn that his soul has in itself the seeds of all joy that one meets in life. The will of such a soul free from hatred, is God's own will. The poet's daughter can, by reading her and of all hatred, lead a happy life no matter what the attitude of people towards her might be and what hostile opinion they might express. And the final and the last stanza of this poem. And may her bridegroom bring her to a house where all is accustomed ceremonies for arrogance and hatred, all the words paddle in the thought fairs. And how but in custom and in ceremony are innocence and beauty born. Ceremonies of name for the rich horn and custom for the spreading laurel tree. In the final stanza, the poet wants his daughter to be married to a man who belongs to a family that believes in the value of custom and ceremony. Custom and ceremony are opposed to arrogance and hatred. Custom and ceremony give birth to innocence and beauty. Yeats was a great upholder of the former courtesy, etiquette, ceremonious behavior, customary graces, etc., of the great aristocratic households. He did not believe in the crudity of the masses of the plebeian attitudes propagated by socialists. In this line, Yeats prays that his daughter be like her mother rather than like Morgan, and that she be granted beauty, yet not beauty to make strangers effort. Uh, that she be kind, capable of closest intimacy rather than Helen, bored and troubled by a fool, that she escape the sort of intellectual hatred. If through custom that innocence can be recovered, then his daughter stands a chance, though every windy quarter hole or every billows brush, to be happy in spite of the world which surrounds her. So, in this whole poem, Yeats wishes that his daughter should be unlike Morgan, and there should be value of ceremony and custom in our life, not only in our life but also in the life of daughter her daughter should be beautiful, but not should so beautiful that can be the cause of any troubles, and at the place of more beauty he wants that her daughter should be filled with the internal beauty or eternal values. So this is a very beautiful poem and very moral giving to us. So thank you.